The adopted daughter my dad brought home was twisted from the start. Even though I'd spend my days trying to teach her how beautiful the world was, she would sneak into my room at night, stand beside me, and whisper with a sly look in her eyes, "Tell me, who do you care about the most?" Later, I went to my best friend for advice, and at his urging, I confessed my feelings to Chloe right before the college entrance exams, only to be coldly rejected on the spot. In the end, my heartbreak caused me to bomb the exams, and my parents kicked me out of the house. Meanwhile, my best friend, with the perfect good guy image he'd carefully crafted, ended up marrying my adopted sister. When I opened my eyes again, I was reborn, back to the time just before the exams. Even though I had just been rejected, I couldn't help but smile. This time, I didn't want to suffer for love again. I just wanted to study hard, get into my dream university, and live a life of freedom. With half an hour left before the exam, my sister, who shared neither a father nor a mother with me, found me. "Let's just pretend yesterday was a joke," she said. "Focus on your exam now. In 2 months, I'll be waiting for you at the Southwest Military Academy." I turned to look at Chloe, dressed in her military uniform. Her face was cool and composed. Her waist was slim, her legs were long, and her delicate beauty was tinged with a sharp, confident air. When I didn't say anything, her brow furrowed. That snapped me back to reality, and I quickly grabbed my pencil case. "It's almost time. I'm heading in for the test." Chloe was taken aback. She never expected the little brother who always clung to her to be so detached. I ignored Chloe's scrutinizing gaze, hailed a cab, and headed for the testing center. Given a second chance, I refused to spend my life chasing after Chloe, only to end up adrift and alone. This time, I would seize my chance, get into a great university, and live life on my own terms. By the time I finished the last exam and walked out of the testing center, the sun was beginning to set. Reporters waiting outside swarmed the students, eager to get interviews. I tried to slip past, but a microphone was shoved in my face. "Ethan Clark, we heard you were rejected yesterday after confessing your feelings. Did that affect your performance on the exam today?" Before I could answer, a cheerful figure in a white shirt and short hair pushed through the crowd. It was Ryan. "Stop asking him," he said. "Ethan confessed the day before the exams and it didn't go well. He's not in a good state." The familiar words brought a flood of unbearable memories rushing back. In my past life, all my misfortunes were thanks to this so-called best friend. Ryan was the one who told everyone about my confession, and Ryan was the one who got me kicked out of my own home. It was only later, when I saw him standing beside Chloe with a triumphant look on his face, that I finally understood. Ryan did it all because he liked Chloe too. My entire miserable life had just been paving the way for his. With a fresh start, I pushed Ryan aside as he was about to speak and faced the reporters calmly. "There's nothing wrong with liking someone, and there's nothing wrong with confessing. But none of that will affect me. I'm confident I did well on my exams this time. Thank you." The setting sun cast its light on me, and my shadow stood tall and straight. I started walking home, toward the sanctuary I had dreamed of returning to countless times in my past life. Ethan's home. A familiar, loving voice suddenly rang out. I looked up and saw my father waiting for me under the old oak tree where he used to meet me after school when I was a kid. Mr. Clark looked at his son, hesitating for a moment. "I heard what you said to Chloe yesterday," he said. "I didn't dare tell your mother. You're confused, son. Chloe is your sister." I froze, a pang of sorrow rising in my chest as I looked into my father's worried eyes. In my past life, my confession to Chloe had brought scorn down on all of us. My parents were caught in a storm of gossip, and their hair seemed to turn gray overnight. Watching my father walk ahead, I jogged up and put an arm around his shoulders. "Dad, I was wrong. I mistook dependency for love. From now on, I'll only ever see Chloe as my sister." The worried expression on my father's face finally eased. As we walked into the yard and pushed open the door, we saw Chloe standing right there. My father patted my shoulder and went inside. The fading sunlight washed over Chloe's cool, almost otherworldly face. Our eyes met, and for a long moment, neither of us spoke. After a moment, I broke the silence with a smile. "Hey sis, I'm sorry if my nonsense yesterday worried you. My brain must have short-circuited. I apologize. Please don't worry about it. We'll be family forever." As Chloe listened to my calm explanation, a strange flicker of anger rose within her. Just yesterday, he had been holding her hand, confessing his feelings. Now, overnight, his entire attitude had changed. Had he truly let go of those inappropriate feelings, or was this just a game of push and pull? Chloe looked at me, her voice heavy as she lectured, It's good that you've come to your senses. The entrance exams are a major turning point in life. You need to focus on what's important. I just kept smiling and nodding. Chloe came out of her room with a brochure and handed it to me. The required scores for the Southwest Military Academy go up every year, she said. You'll have to give it your all to get in. When I saw it was a recruitment poster for the Southwest Military Academy, the smile on my face froze for a second, but I said nothing. In my past life, my entire world revolved around chasing Chloe, so of course I wanted to go to the Southwest Military Academy to be near her. In the end, I didn't get the girl and ended up living a miserable life. Now that I had a second chance, I was going to choose the school I really wanted, Harvard. I watched Chloe's back as she went into her room, but I didn't say anything about wanting to change my college choice. We were going to live separate lives anyway, so I decided not to bring it up yet. I took the brochure back to my room, turned on the radio, and started studying, losing myself in the subjects I loved until it was time for dinner. The family gathered around the dinner table together for the first time in what felt like ages. This was the kind of moment I had desperately longed for in my past life, when I was too ashamed by the rumors to come home, drifting aimlessly. The thought moved me, and my mind began to drift. Ethan, what are you thinking about? Did the exams not go well? My mother asked with concern, placing a piece of egg in my bowl. I shook my head and smiled faintly. No, they went well. My mother's face lit up. That's wonderful. If you go to the Southwest Military Academy, your sister will be right there at the base to look after you. My hand holding my fork paused. My mother didn't notice and continued, your father and I are getting older, and once you're in college, you'll be too busy with your studies to visit often. With your sister there, we won't have to worry. The words caught in my throat, but I couldn't bring myself to say them. I'll be 18 after this summer, I said instead. I can take care of myself. Don't worry, Mom, Dad. After dinner, I offered to help my mother with the dishes, but she shooed me off to take a shower. As I was coming out of the bathroom, drying my hair, I saw a familiar figure in the yard. Chloe's voice was flat. You looked like you had something to say at dinner earlier. I stopped rubbing my hair with the towel. In my past life, I followed Chloe around like a shadow, but she was completely absorbed in her studies, determined to follow in her father's footsteps and fulfill his mission of defending the country. She never paid any attention to me trailing behind her. I was surprised she was observant enough to notice something was off this time. I gave a small smile. No, it's nothing. Just a little sad thinking about leaving home. Chloe looked up at her little brother, who was now half a head taller than her, and for some reason, felt like she couldn't quite figure him out anymore. I gazed quietly at the stars, thinking it would be a long time before I could appreciate a night sky like this again. A teacher once told me that after you go to college, your hometown no longer has a spring or fall, only winter and summer. The older you get, the less often you come home. Neither of us spoke again, and a silence fell between us. Just then, my mother came out from the kitchen. Chloe, a friend of mine who likes to play matchmaker, came by today. She wants to set you up with that boy from the Miller family, Ryan. Why don't you go meet him before you have to report to the base? Chloe paused for a moment, then nodded. All right, you can set it up. Mrs. Clark smiled immediately. Great. I'll call her back right now and arrange for you and Ryan to meet in the next couple of days. He's a good kid from a good family. If you two hit it off, you can get engaged. That way, you'll have someone looking out for you when you're away at the academy. After my mother left, I saw Chloe was about to leave too. Remembering Ryan's vicious nature from my past life, I felt compelled to warn her. Sis, Ryan isn't as innocent as he looks. Be careful when you meet him tomorrow. Chloe just frowned at me. Ethan, you've really changed. Ryan is your best friend. You shouldn't talk about him like that. Chloe's door slammed shut, leaving me standing there in shock. I never realized in my past life how protective Chloe was of Ryan. A wave of helplessness washed over me. It seemed I was worrying for nothing. Whatever. Who ended up with Chloe was no longer my concern. The next morning, I ate breakfast, double-checked my admission ticket and supplies, and headed to the testing center. When the test booklets were handed out, the tension in my face finally eased. I had tried to guess some of the questions the night before, and by some stroke of luck, I'd guessed correctly. This time, I was sure I could do exceptionally well and get a great score. With a confident smile, I began to write, my pen flying across the page. Time ticked by, and soon the final bell rang. All the exams were over. I walked out of the testing center, stretched my arms, and felt my entire body relax. I walked back to Phoenix Creek in high spirits, but as I reached the edge of town, I noticed everyone was staring at me strangely. I had only taken a few steps before their ugly, insulting words reached my ears. That's the Clark boy. Can you believe he confessed his love to his own sister the other day? What kind of university would accept someone so immoral? The Clarks raised such a shameless son. They must have some bad family karma. If that were my son, I'd beat him black and blue. Some people are just shameless. He's a disgrace to Phoenix Creek, and he still has the nerve to show his face around here. Hearing this, a chill went down my spine, and I felt as if I had been plunged back into the nightmare of my previous life. In my past life, the news of my confession to Chloe had spread through the entire town overnight. Back then, my mind had gone blank, and I was consumed by shame. By the time I tried to explain, it was too late. No one would listen. Ultimately, my parents were dragged into it, blamed for my bad upbringing. My hands clenched into fists. I turned, squared my shoulders, and faced them all, my voice ringing out clearly. Ladies, Chloe and I are not related by blood. There's nothing immoral about it. There's nothing wrong with liking someone. I was just young and confused dependency with love. I've figured it out now. Whoever Chloe marries in the future, she'll have my blessing. If any of you continue to spread rumors, don't be surprised when I report you for slander. Startled by my firm tone, the crowd fell silent. I walked home with a lighter step. As I walked in, my mom was coming out of the kitchen with a plate of food. All done with your exams? We can eat as soon as your sister gets home. I took the plate from her and asked casually, "Where'd she go?" My mother's face was all smiles. "Your sister's finally seeing sense. She has that meeting with Ryan tomorrow, doesn't she? She went into town to buy some makeup for it." I listened quietly, feeling no particular emotion. The only surprise was that Chloe seemed to value Ryan so highly. Just as the last dish was being brought to the table, Chloe returned, her hands full of shopping bags. "Why did you buy so much?" Mrs. Clark asked with a smile. Chloe replied, "Some of it is for you and Dad. Since I'll be leaving soon, I wanted to get you a few things." "Oh, honey, you just started working. You should be saving your money for the future. I don't need any of this." I listened to their conversation without a word, silently eating my favorite barbecue ribs. After dinner, I got up and went back to my room. The first thing I saw when I entered was the framed photo of me and Chloe on my desk. Looking at the two of us smiling happily in the picture, I couldn't help but think about the past. Ever since Dad brought Chloe home, she had always been so good to me. When I was 10, I caught a cold after getting soaked in the rain, and Chloe stayed up putting cool cloths on my forehead to bring the fever down. When I was 15, I got lost playing in the woods behind our house, and Chloe searched for me all night, finally carrying me home on her back. But then, Chloe left for the academy, and we drifted apart. And now, she was about to get married and start a new family of her own. I was going to Harvard. These memories would eventually fade. I pushed down the swell of emotion, pulled a cardboard box from my closet, and packed away everything that reminded me of Chloe, including that photo. I set the box aside, planning to get rid of it the next day. The next morning, I had just stepped out of my room with the box when the door across the hall opened. Chloe had traded her usual uniform for a brand new dress. She glanced at the box in my arms and asked flatly, "What's that you're holding?" "Just some old study materials and some toys from when I was a kid. I'm going to donate them to the local children's home," I answered calmly. Chloe nodded without another question and headed outside. At the door, she turned back. "Tell Mom I won't be home for dinner tonight." I watched her leave the yard, then glanced down at the photo frame lying face down on top of the box's contents. A small, bitter smile touched my lips. She must not have cared at all to not even recognize the frame that held our only picture together. After breakfast, I took a bus into town to buy some supplies for college. I went from one end of town to the other, checking several bookstores before I finally found a book about Harvard. On my way, I passed a pharmacy and remembered my mother coughing the night before, so I went in to buy her some cold medicine and cough syrup. With my hands full, I was about to head for the bus stop when I passed a jewelry store and saw two familiar figures. Ryan and Chloe were walking out of the shop, side by side. "Ethan, what a coincidence," I replied coolly. "I was just picking a few things up." A smug look flashed across Ryan's face as he continued, "Chloe and I really hit it off. We'll be getting married soon. You don't mind, do you?" As he spoke, he kept turning his wrist, deliberately showing off the new watch he was wearing. I didn't bother looking closely and just replied softly, "Congratulations." I had decided to keep my distance, so whatever they did was none of my business. Ryan seemed surprised by my indifferent reaction and looked a little deflated. He forced a smile and said to Chloe, loud enough for me to hear, "We'll be one big family soon." Your brother will be my brother too, Chloe. Chloe gave Ryan a gentle look and nodded. I just smiled faintly and said nothing. After what happened in my past life, I knew exactly who Ryan really was. In this life, I wanted nothing to do with him and would never consider him a friend again. The smile on Ryan's face grew wider. Ethan, Chloe, and I have more shopping to do. Why don't you join us? No thanks. I'm done, so I'm heading back now. I refused without a second thought and got on the next bus home. Chloe watched me leave, her silent eyes filled with a complex, dark emotion, but she didn't say a word. When I got home, I gave the medicine to my mother and then went to my room. I sat at my desk and eagerly opened the book about Harvard, immediately captivated by the university's rich history and culture. Before I knew it, night had fallen. Just then, there was a knock. I got up to open the door and found Chloe standing there. I saw your light was still on. Why aren't you asleep yet? I answered quietly, I was just about to. Chloe looked at the distant young man before her and frowned. She felt my attitude toward her had grown cold lately, and it filled her with a strange sense of unease. She glanced around the room and noticed an empty spot on my desk. Where's the picture frame that was on your desk? I glanced over my shoulder, and a lie came out automatically. I accidentally broke it, so I took it in to get fixed. For some reason, hearing this answer seemed to calm the unease in Chloe's chest. Well, get some rest. Good night. With that, she turned and went into her room. In my past life, I would never have dared to lie to Chloe. She could always tell. But this time, she didn't seem to notice my casual lie at all. I laughed bitterly to myself, then closed my door and went to sleep. For the next few days, I did nothing but read and wait for the exam scores to be released. As for Chloe, she was out from morning till night, spending time with Ryan. The days flew by, and soon it was June 24th, the day the exam scores were posted. I headed to the school early that morning to check my scores. Just as I got to the school entrance, a black car pulled to a stop. Ethan, are you here to check your scores too? I had been about to walk past, but I heard someone call my name. I turned and saw a beautiful girl with a gentle smile getting out of the car. I thought for a moment and realized it was Scarlett, a girl from my class. Scarlett came from a wealthy family, but we'd barely spoken a few words to each other, so we weren't close. I gave her a polite nod. Scarlett ignored my formal politeness and approached me as if we were old friends. Let's go in together. The two of us walked into the main office together. The moment I got my score report, even though I had a good idea of what to expect, my heart was still pounding. I took a deep breath to steady my racing heart, unfolded the paper, and looked at the total score at the bottom. The number was there in black and white, 690. I finally let out the breath I'd been holding. I had checked Harvard's admission scores from previous years. They were usually around 670. This score was more than enough. I thanked the administrator and rushed to get home to tell my parents the good news. But after waiting for a while with no bus in sight, Scarlett offered to give me a ride home. As soon as I got out of the car at my house, I saw Chloe and Ryan walking out of the yard, arm in arm. I quickly looked away and turned to thank Scarlett. Scarlett still had a bright smile on her face. Ethan, if you really want to thank me, you should come to my birthday party in a couple of days. I was a little surprised, but I smiled. After Scarlett drove off, I was about to go inside when Ryan called out dramatically, Ethan, was that Scarlett? Are you two dating? She's a notorious rich girl flirt. Dating her probably won't end well for you. I frowned, and just as I was about to retort, Chloe's lecturing voice cut in. Ryan's right. A family like hers, they're not our kind of people. You should stay away from her. Besides, you're still young. You need to have some self-respect and not just fool around with anyone. Her words made my stomach turn. I just got a ride home from a classmate. How did that turn into fooling around? What right did Chloe have to say that to me? I shot a look at Chloe, the words tumbling out before I could think. I'm an adult, Chloe. I can be friends with whoever I want. With that, I walked straight into the house. Chloe stood frozen, her face darkening as she stared at my closed bedroom door. She only snapped out of it when Ryan said something to her. I didn't care how Chloe reacted. That night, I told my parents my score, and then it was time to fill out my college applications. To avoid being discovered, I waited for a day when Chloe wasn't home and went to the school library to fill out my applications on the computer. A few days later, I went to the library to return some books. On the way home, I ran into Scarlett and a group of her friends. I was just going to say hi and keep walking, but Scarlett suddenly asked, Ethan, want to go ice skating? Before I could answer, one of her friends teased, the birthday girl wants to go skating? That's when I realized it was her birthday, and I felt I couldn't refuse. And so, Our group headed to the biggest ice rink in town. Seeing me frozen in place, Scarlett walked over with a pair of skates. Never been skating before? Don't worry, I'll teach you. Okay, I nodded. We got our skates on and went to the edge of the rink. But then I saw Chloe and Ryan on the other side of the ice. I was a little surprised. I never thought the ever-serious Chloe would come to a place like this with Ryan. I greeted them casually. Scarlett, beside me, paused for a second before adding, "Hi, I'm Scarlett." Chloe shot Scarlett a cold look and was about to say something, but just then, music started blasting through the rink. The skaters who had been resting took to the ice again, and the place came alive. Ryan eagerly pulled Chloe onto the ice. "Chloe, let's go." Whatever Chloe was about to say was lost as she was passively pulled along by Ryan. I just smiled and led Scarlett to the other side of the rink. Since it was my first time, I was pretty nervous and had to let Scarlett hold my hand and guide me slowly. Scarlett taught me the basics as she led me around the ice. With her help, I slowly got the hang of it and asked her to let go so I could try on my own. I quickly realized I had overestimated my abilities. I hadn't gone 2 feet before I lost my balance and started to fall. Luckily, Scarlett had quick reflexes and grabbed me, pulling me back up. The next thing I knew, we were pressed tightly together, so close I could feel her breath on my face. I felt a little awkward and was about to pull away when I saw Ryan across the rink with his hands around Chloe's waist. Scarlett noticed my expression change. "Are you okay? Did that scare you? Maybe we should take a break?" I nodded. We made our way to the rest area. Scarlett turned to ask me something, but my skates slipped on the floor, and I stumbled forward, right into her. She instinctively reached out to steady me, and my arms wrapped around her waist to break my fall. We collided much harder this time, pressed even closer than on the ice. My heart leaped. I steadied myself and was about to thank her when I heard Chloe's angry voice from nearby. "What are you two doing?" Scarlett and I slowly pulled apart to see Chloe glaring at us, her eyes cold as ice. "Ethan, do you have any idea what you're doing? Hugging a girl like that in public? Have you no shame? You're coming home with me now," Chloe said, grabbing my wrist. Her grip hurt. "Chloe, you're misunderstanding. It was just then, Ryan, who was standing nearby, suddenly collapsed to the ground with a cry of pain. Chloe's attention immediately shifted to him. She knelt down beside him. "What's wrong?" Ryan clutched his ankle. "Someone bumped into me. I think I twisted it." Hearing this, Chloe immediately took off his skates and helped him up. "I'll take you to the hospital." Before she left, she shot one last command at me over her shoulder. "Go home on your own." I stood there, and as they left, Ryan glanced back at me with a triumphant look in his eyes. I knew instantly he had done it on purpose, but Chloe hadn't seen a thing. It confirmed one thing for me yet again. In Chloe's heart, Ryan would always be more important than I was. One second she was scolding me for being too close to another girl, and the next she was abandoning me for Ryan, leaving me completely alone with that same girl. Suddenly, she didn't seem so worried anymore. Back in my room, I felt utterly exhausted and didn't want to move a muscle. I was about to lie down for a bit when I heard a man's voice from outside. "Hello? Anyone home? Is this the Clark residence?" I hurried outside to see the mailman standing by the gate with his bike, holding a large envelope. "I'm Ethan. Is that for me?" "Yes," the mailman said, handing me the envelope. I eagerly tore it open. When I saw it was an acceptance letter from Harvard University, my heart finally settled. Everything was finally falling into place. I went to bed that night feeling happy and slept soundly. When I woke up, I could smell breakfast cooking. My family was in the middle of the meal when Chloe returned. My mother asked, "How's Ryan doing? Is it anything serious?" Chloe replied nonchalantly, "He's fine. It's just a minor sprain. I already took him home." I listened to her, eating my food in silence. Then Chloe spoke up again. "Mom, Dad, I got a letter from the academy. They're cutting my leave short. I have to go back tomorrow." My parents were surprised but nodded in support. My mother sighed. "It's a shame. I guess this means you and Ryan won't be able to get engaged." For some reason, Chloe glanced at me. Seeing me eating with my head down, completely unfazed, she felt a strange pang in her chest. My parents thought about it and agreed. Chloe then turned to me, an odd impulse making her ask, "Your acceptance letter should be arriving any day now, right? Ryan also applied to the Southwest Military Academy. You two can travel there together. It'll be good to have someone to look out for you." "That's right," my parents chimed in. "Since you're both going to the same place, you can travel together." I thought about the letter I had received that afternoon and hesitated to speak up. My mother took over the conversation, looking at Chloe. "Chloe, When Ethan gets to the academy, you have to look after him for me. I'm worried." Listening to all this with a mouthful of food, I still couldn't bring myself to say anything. I didn't want to give my mother a sleepless night. I'd tell them when I got there. The next day, the whole family was up early to see Chloe off. Thinking about her leaving, I took the initiative to say, "Be safe on your trip, sis." Chloe nodded, then looked at me and began to lecture. "You don't know what kind of person Scarlett is. You need to be more careful around her. And school will be starting soon. You need to get your head in the game and focus on your studies, so you don't fall behind when you get to the academy." I listened in silence, not arguing, not saying a word, but she kept staring at me, as if waiting for a response, so I just gave a non-committal nod. I know, let her believe what she wanted. I didn't have the energy to argue. Chloe opened the car door, but just then, Ryan's voice called out from a distance. "Chloe!" She hurried over to him. "Your ankle is still hurt. What are you doing here? You're leaving today. I came to see you off." I didn't want to interrupt their tearful goodbye, so I turned and went back inside without a second glance. For some reason, Chloe suddenly turned and looked at my retreating back, a strange anxiety twisting in her gut, as if she might never see me again. She laughed at herself for the thought. It wouldn't be long. Once I was at the academy, she would see me again. Chloe exchanged a few more words with Ryan, then got into the military jeep and drove away. The day passed by in a blur. That evening, I went to my room early and started to pack. The next morning, I would be leaving for Harvard. I had done my research on Washington, D.C. and Harvard, so I knew the winters were cold. I made sure to pack extra warm clothes. While cleaning out my desk drawer, I came across 2 family photos. One was from when I was very little, before Chloe came to live with us. It was just the 3 of us. The other was taken a couple of years ago with Chloe, turning our family of 3 into a family of 4. But I only took the photo of the 3 of us and packed it in my suitcase. After I finished packing, I washed up and went to bed. I slept soundly that night without a single dream. The next day, just as the sky was beginning to lighten, I left a letter on the hall table, picked up my suitcase, and walked out. The house was quiet. My parents were still asleep. Before I left, I glanced back at their bedroom door, 1,000 unspoken words turning into a single thought. "Mom, Dad, take care of yourselves." Then, I walked out of the house with my head held high. Half an hour later, I was on a train to Washington, D.C. The image from my past life flashed in my mind, being run out of town, disgraced, treated like a stray dog. This life, I had finally avoided that fate. This time, I was going to live for myself. The sun was rising on the horizon, and I believed a bright future was waiting for me. With a lurch and a rumble, the train began to move. Having gotten up so early, I started to feel drowsy. In a state between waking and sleeping, I felt my head come to rest on someone's shoulder. I snapped awake and looked over to see a familiar face. "Scarlett, what are you doing here?" Scarlett turned her head toward me. "You're awake. I'm going to D.C., same as you. What a coincidence. You got into Harvard too?" I asked, surprised. Scarlett smiled and nodded, and just like that, we were on our way to Harvard together. Meanwhile, back home, Mr. and Mrs. Clark woke up and went to the kitchen to make breakfast as usual. They set the table, but I still hadn't come out of my room. Mrs. Clark dried her hands and went to wake me, only to find my door ajar. She pushed it open and saw that many of my things were gone. The bed was neatly made, and I was nowhere to be seen. Her heart sank, and then she spotted the letter on my desk. She cried out in alarm, "Honey, come quick! Ethan's gone." Mr. Clark rushed in. "What is it? What do you mean, gone?" My mother handed him the letter. "I found this on his desk. You're a better reader than I am. Hurry up and see what it says." My father looked down at the envelope. It was addressed to Mom and Dad. He quickly tore it open and unfolded the letter inside. It read, "Mom and Dad, by the time you read this, I'll already be on a train to Washington, D.C. I never told you, but I was accepted to Harvard, not the Southwest Military Academy. Please forgive me for leaving without saying goodbye, but don't worry. I'll take good care of myself. Once I'm settled in at Harvard, I'll call or write. Don't worry about me. Ethan." After reading it, a look of surprise crossed my father's face. "He went to Harvard. He's already on his way." My mother was stunned. Harvard? Not the military academy? Chloe thought he was going to the academy too. What is going on with that boy? No, I have to call Chloe and tell her. She started to head for the phone, but my father stopped her. He's already gone to Harvard. Telling Chloe now won't change anything. He said he'll call us when he's settled. We can ask him about it then. My mother thought for a moment and agreed that was the only thing to do. Meanwhile, at the Southwest Military Academy, Chloe, as a squad leader in the advanced training program, was drilling a group of new cadets. Suddenly, a strange sense of panic washed over her, a feeling that she was losing something incredibly important. She frowned, and an image of me flashed in her mind. She shook her head. Ethan was coming to the academy soon. They would see each other again. How could she possibly lose him? She had completely forgotten that I had ever mentioned wanting to go to Harvard. Reassured, Chloe refocused and continued with the training exercise. After the training session was over, Chloe went into town to do some shopping. She figured I wouldn't have packed everything I needed, so she decided to pick up some toiletries and other essentials for me. As she returned to her on-base housing, loaded down with bags, she ran into her neighbor, another officer's wife. The woman glanced at her bags. "Captain, buying so many things for the house. Is your fiancé moving in?" Chloe was taken aback but didn't correct her, and a strange sense of happiness bloomed in her chest. The days passed, and finally, it was the first day of the semester at the Southwest Military Academy. Chloe took a day off and drove over to the main campus. She stood near the entrance, her eyes scanning the crowds of new students, terrified she might miss me. Just as she thought she spotted a familiar figure and started to move forward, a happy voice called out from behind her. "Chloe, were you waiting here just for me?" Chloe turned to see Ryan standing there with his luggage, beaming at her. She looked around but didn't see anyone else. "Why are you by yourself? Isn't Ethan with you?" A flicker of something passed through Ryan's eyes. "You don't know?" he asked, feigning surprise. "Ethan already left for Harvard with Scarlett." Chloe froze, her heart plummeting as if it had been dropped into a bottomless chasm. Her mind went blank. "How is that possible?" she mumbled. "He always wanted to go to the academy. Why would he suddenly go to?" Chloe's words trailed off as she suddenly remembered something I had said. "I want to go to Harvard to study linguistics. I think I'd like to be a teacher. It suits me better." She had assumed I was just joking, saying it to get a rise out of her because she was spending so much time with Ryan. She never imagined it was what I truly wanted, and that I had actually done it. He had gone to Harvard behind her back, without a single word. Chloe couldn't accept it. She had to find me and demand an explanation. She turned to head for her car, but Ryan grabbed her arm. "Chloe, I just got here. I don't know my way around. Can you just help me?" Before he could finish, Chloe shook his hand off. "Figure it out yourself. I have to go." With that, she got in her car and sped off. Ryan watched her car disappear, leaving only a trail of exhaust. He gritted his teeth, a bitter feeling of resentment in his heart. But then, a smile spread across his face. He turned and walked through the gates of the academy. It didn't matter. He was here with Chloe now. I was far away in DC. From now on, no one would stand between them. As soon as Chloe got back to her apartment, she dialed the number for the town office in Phoenix Creek. As she waited for one of my parents to be called to the phone, her mind was in turmoil. She didn't know what answer she was hoping for, but she knew that no answer would satisfy her, because the one thing she wanted most now seemed impossible. She was lost in thought when my mother's voice came on the line. "Chloe, honey, is everything all right at the academy?" "I'm fine, don't worry," Chloe said. "I'm calling to ask about Ethan. Did he really go to Harvard?" "He did," my mother said, a hint of anger still in her voice. "The boy snuck out the day after you left. All he left was a letter." Chloe's heart sank. "Has he written since? Or called?" "Not yet. Your father and I have been waiting to hear from him. We expect he'll be in touch in the next day or two." "Mom, if he leaves a phone number or an address, could you please let me know?" Chloe's voice was strained, almost pleading. My mother found her tone a little strange, but didn't think much of it. "Of course, dear. I'll let you know." After Chloe hung up, her heart felt like a lead weight in her chest. She still couldn't understand why I had suddenly gone to Harvard. Didn't I love her? Didn't I want to be with her forever? Scarlett's face flashed in her mind, and a sharp pain shot through her chest. Could it be? Had he really fallen for Scarlett? No. The word screamed in her mind, startling her. A feeling she hadn't even known was there, buried deep inside her, was now forcing its way to the surface. It left her feeling lost and confused, but she was slowly beginning to understand her true feelings for me. Meanwhile, at Harvard, I had already finished my registration. I carried my bags to my assigned dorm, room 502 in Building 5, but it was empty. I was the first to arrive. After unpacking my suitcase, I decided I should call home to let them know I'd arrived safely, so I went out to find a payphone. The call had barely connected when I heard my mother's voice roaring through the receiver. "Ethan Clark, you have some nerve, going to Harvard behind our backs." I held the phone away from my ear for a moment before bringing it back. "Mom, I told you I wanted to go to Harvard," my mother shot back, "but you can't just sneak off without a word." I was silent for a moment before I apologized. "I'm sorry, Mom." That seemed to calm her down a bit, and she asked me how things were at Harvard. Finally, she asked, "Can you give me a phone number or an address? That way we can get in touch with you if we need to." So I gave my mom the address. It was actually one Scarlett had given me when we arrived on campus, along with a phone number. I recited the number to her. We talked for a few more minutes before hanging up. When I got back to my dorm room, there were a few other guys there. The guy on the bunk next to mine was the first to speak. "Hey, you must be my roommate. I'm Mason." I smiled and nodded. "Hey, I'm Ethan." The other four guys introduced themselves, and with that, everyone in room 502 had arrived. Mason was a cheerful, outgoing guy and a local from DC. He immediately launched into a description of all the cool places in the city. "If you guys have time, I can show you around. How about over the 4th of July weekend?" The other guys, though not from DT itself, all lived close enough that they planned on going home for the holiday. Finally, Mason looked at me. "You're not going home too, are you?" I hesitated. I had come to Harvard without telling Chloe, and I was sure she would come looking for me to demand an explanation. If I went home for the holiday, I would almost certainly run into her. I really didn't want to see her right now. After thinking it over, I shook my head. "I'm not going home. You can show me around DC then." Mason grinned and clapped me on the shoulder. "All right, it's a deal. There's a big parade this year. We can go check it out." I nodded. After that, life at Harvard began for all of us. As was tradition, all the freshmen had to participate in an orientation event. This year, it was organized by dorm, and each dorm had to prepare a performance. Mason and the other guys were in our room trying to figure out what to do. Suddenly, Mason burst in. "I've got it. I know what we're going to do." All eyes in the room turned to him. "How about we team up with a girls' dorm and do a formal dance number?" No one objected. They all knew how to dance and knew it was a popular choice. Only I, the kid from the country, had no idea what to do. Mason noticed my hesitation. "You don't know how? It's okay. I can teach you." In the end, I reluctantly agreed. I had come to Harvard to better myself and build a bright future. I might as well start by learning to dance. As the others gathered to discuss the plan, a question occurred to me. "Mason, which girls' dorm are we partnering with?" Mason slapped his forehead. "Right, I almost forgot. If you guys are free, we can go meet them now." We all agreed. Just as we were leaving, someone at the end of the hall called out, "Is Ethan from 502 here? There's a phone call for you at the front desk." I was surprised. A phone call for me? I had just called home a couple of days ago. Had something happened? A wave of anxiety washed over me. "I have to go to the front desk," I told Mason. "I'll find you guys later." Mason nodded. "Okay, we'll probably be at the gym or the dining hall." I nodded and hurried to the front desk, picking up the receiver. "Mom? Dad? Is something wrong at Ethan?" The voice on the other end was familiar, but not the one I was expecting. I froze. I hadn't expected Chloe to track me down so quickly. I was silent for a long moment before I finally spoke. On the other end of the line, hearing my voice seemed to calm Chloe's anxious heart. But then, thinking of my recent behavior, her agitation returned, stronger than before. She couldn't control the anger in her voice. "Ethan, don't you have anything to say to me?" The silence on the other end of the line made her inexplicably nervous. Just as she was about to speak again, she heard my voice. "Chloe, I've already said everything I need to say. I'm at Harvard now. You don't need to worry about me. You and Ryan should just be happy together." Her words made Chloe's chest tighten. "So, you did all this because of him?" I cut her off before she could finish. "None of that matters anymore. Chloe, we may be brother and sister, but we each have our own lives to live. I've found my purpose now. You don't have to worry." Hearing my calm, detached tone, Chloe felt a bitter taste in her mouth. She could feel the distance between us, and she was slowly realizing just how much she cared for me, a feeling she had kept hidden even from herself. But she had no idea how to express it. When she didn't respond, I decided not to drag it out. "I have to go. I'll talk to you later. Goodbye." I hung up without waiting for her to reply. I stood there for a moment, composing myself, then turned and left. As Mason had said, I found them at the gym. When I got there, they had already paired off one guy to one girl and were starting to practice. Mason saw me and waved me over. Ethan, over here. I walked over and introduced myself to the girls. Then Mason said to me, I know you're not much of a dancer, so I saved the best partner for you. He looked around and pointed to a girl walking toward us. There she is. I followed his gaze and saw a slender girl in a white dress and a ponytail approaching. I recognized her immediately. It was Scarlett. She greeted me with a smile in her voice. It's you. Scarlett looked just as surprised to see me. She raised an eyebrow. Yeah, we seemed to be fated to run into each other. Mason glanced back and forth between us. You two know each other? I smiled. Yeah, we're from the same town. Mason nodded. Great. Since you already know each other, it should be less awkward. He looked at Scarlett. I'll leave Ethan in your hands, then. Scarlett nodded. Don't worry. When Mason went off to practice with his own partner, I said to Scarlett, a little embarrassed, so, I really can't dance. At all. Scarlett reassured me. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Just follow my lead. Then, Scarlett began to patiently teach me the steps. She held out her hand. Put your hand on mine, and just follow my steps. Scarlett took my hand and led me forward and back. Then she had me raise my arm, and she twirled gracefully under it. Just then, I stumbled, lost my balance, and started to fall backward. I cried out, shutting my eyes tight and bracing for the impact. But after a moment, I felt no pain. Instead, I heard Scarlett's teasing voice. Are you going to let me hold you up all day? I snapped my eyes open to find that Scarlett had caught me. Meeting her smiling eyes, I felt my ears turn red. I quickly regained my balance and gently stepped back. Scarlett pulled her hand back. It's okay. Let's try again. I nodded, and this time I was much more careful. Thankfully, I didn't fall again. I breathed a sigh of relief. Scarlett, beside me, couldn't help but laugh. You don't have to be so tense. Dancing is supposed to be fun. You need to relax and enjoy it. I nodded. I'll try. Just then, Mason came over. How's it going? Seeing that I didn't know what to say, Scarlett answered for me. With me as his teacher, you don't have to worry. He won't hold us back. I'm not worried about that at all, Mason said, looking at me. Ethan, don't feel pressured. I gave a slight nod to show I understood. That's enough for today, Mason said. Let's go get some dinner. He called over the others, and we all headed to the dining hall. During dinner, Mason suddenly asked me, Ethan, was that a call from your family earlier? My fork paused midair. It was my sister. You have a sister? Mason's inner gossip columnist was showing. How old is she? Where is she now? I was getting tired of his questions and didn't want to talk about Chloe. Scarlett, sitting across from me, must have noticed my expression. She quickly changed the subject. Ethan, the orientation event is just a few days away. You need to practice hard. You can come find me anytime. I'm in Building 1, Room 401. Seeing Scarlett change the subject, Mason dropped his questions about Chloe. I breathed a sigh of relief. Okay, I said quickly. How about after dinner? If you're free, you could teach me some more. Scarlett glanced at me. After dinner, the others went their separate ways, and I went back to the gym with Scarlett to practice dancing. The days flew by, and soon it was the night of the orientation event. When it was our turn to perform, I suddenly felt a wave of stage fright. Scarlett, standing beside me, leaned in. Don't be nervous. I'm right here. If you get too nervous, just don't look at the audience. Pretend we're back in the gym. I took a deep breath. Okay. During the performance, I followed Scarlett's lead, moving back and forth, turning and spinning. We moved together in perfect sync. As I started to relax, my eyes accidentally drifted to the audience. It was a sea of faces. I panicked, my rhythm faltered, and I accidentally stepped on her foot. Sensing my panic, Scarlett quickly pulled me close, placing my hand on her waist and her own hands on my shoulders. Just follow my lead, she whispered. It's almost over. We were so close I could feel her breath on my cheek. My heart started to race, and my face flushed bright red. The red was still on my face when the thunderous applause erupted and we left the stage. Mason looked at me curiously. Ethan, why is your face so red? It's not because of that final spin Scarlett did, is it? I felt a little embarrassed and looked down without saying anything. Beside me, Scarlett just smiled. The orientation event was a success. Through our dance practice, I became good friends with Scarlett and her roommates. After that, we all threw ourselves into our studies, spending most of our time outside of class in the library. I ran into Scarlett there often, and we gradually grew closer. Before long, rumors started to spread that we were dating. Even Mason came to ask me, Ethan, are you and Scarlett really a thing? I was taken aback and quickly shook my head. No, we just run into each other at the library a lot. Don't spread rumors. But if even Mason thought so, I knew others must be getting the wrong idea. The next day, when I saw Scarlett at the library, I made a point of keeping my distance. During our breaks, I didn't engage her in conversation about her aerospace studies like I usually did. Scarlett was an aerospace engineering major. Scarlett immediately sensed something was wrong and must have thought of the rumors. She looked at me and said softly, "Ethan, you don't have to worry about what other people think. Even if we were dating, it would be none of their business." I knew she was right, but the shadow of my past life still haunted me. In my past life, rumors had ruined my entire life. I didn't want to get caught in that kind of whirlpool again. I considered telling Scarlett, "I think I'll just study in my dorm from now on." Scarlett looked at me, her brow furrowed, as if she wanted to say something, but in the end, she remained silent. She seemed to realize how sensitive I was about relationships. After that, we both made an effort to see less of each other. After a while, the gossip finally died down, and I breathed a sigh of relief, burying myself even deeper in my studies. Time flew by, and before I knew it, it was the 4th of July. Everyone else in the dorm had gone home for the holiday, leaving just me and Mason. Mason said to me, "There's a big parade this year. We should go see it together. They don't have one every year. The last one was 5 years ago. Now that we're in DC, we have to go." We both agreed it was a great idea. Just as we were leaving campus, we ran into Scarlett. She looked surprised to see me. "You didn't go home? Where are you guys headed?" Before I could answer, Mason jumped in. "We're going to the National Mall to see the parade." "Perfect," she said. "So am I. Let's go together." She looked at me as she said it, as if afraid I would say no. I nodded, and Mason and I got into her Lamborghini. When we got to the mall, it was already packed with people. Mason and I exchanged a look that clearly said, "Now what?" "Follow me," Scarlett said. "You won't be able to see anything from here." She led us to a different spot. I found myself at the very front of the crowd, with a perfect view of the entire parade route. I looked at Scarlett in disbelief. I suddenly remembered hearing a rumor at school that her grandfather was a high-ranking officer in DC. No wonder she had been able to get us such a great spot. Mason was already staring, dumbfounded. "Scarlett, who are you? How did you manage to get a spot like this?" Scarlett just shrugged. "It's nothing. The parade's about to start." But I noticed the way Mason was looking at Scarlett had changed. There was something else in his eyes now. I was a little taken aback, but I didn't dwell on it and turned my attention to the parade. With a booming salute, the sound of marching boots echoed across the mall as row after row of soldiers passed before us. Watching them, so full of pride and spirit, I couldn't help but feel a surge of patriotic excitement. Another company of soldiers in green uniforms marched past. I was watching intently when my eyes locked on the commanding figure at the front of the formation. My heart leaped, and my eyes widened as I watched that familiar figure Goose stepping right in front of me. It was her, Chloe. She was here in DC, marching in the parade. My mind reeled, and I stared after her in a daze. "Ethan, Ethan, did you hear what I said?" I felt a gentle nudge and snapped back to reality. I looked at Mason. What were you thinking about just now?" I said, "I'm thirsty. Let's go get some water." "Okay," I said, but I couldn't help but notice the scrutinizing look in Scarlett's eyes. She had seen Chloe too, and she had noticed my reaction. Even back in Phoenix Creek, she had sensed that there was something unusual about my relationship with my sister. Scarlett frowned but didn't say anything. It was my business, after all, but she couldn't help but feel a little annoyed. The three of us left after the parade and headed back to campus. After dropping Mason and me off, Scarlett drove away. As we were about to head back to our dorm, Mason suddenly said, "Ethan, I've decided to ask Scarlett out." I was so shocked I almost tripped over my own feet. I stared at him, and it took me a moment to find my voice. What did you say?" Mason grabbed my arm excitedly. "I think I'm falling for Scarlett. I want to write her a love letter. You have to help me." "What? You're the best writer in our English department. Can you help me write a poem for her?" With that, he dragged me back to our room. Before I knew what was happening, I was sitting at my desk with a pen in my hand and a blank sheet of paper in front of me. I finally came to my senses and put the pen down. "I can't do this. Don't ask me." Seeing that I was serious, Mason backed off. "Okay, I'll write it myself, but you have to look it over for me when I'm done. Deal?" I reluctantly agreed. Just then, there was a knock at the door. I got up to open it. It was a guy from the room next door. "You're Ethan, right?" he asked. "There's someone at the main entrance looking for you." I was confused. I didn't know anyone in DC. Who would be looking for me? Suddenly, the image of that familiar figure in a military uniform flashed in my mind. Could it be her? Had she found me so quickly? I took a deep breath. I had to face this eventually. It was better to clear the air now so we could both move on. I told Mason I'd be back and headed for the main entrance. Chloe saw me from a distance. I was wearing a crisp white shirt, looking sharp and full of youthful energy. I was no longer the little boy from Phoenix Creek who used to follow her around, calling her sis. A shadow passed over Chloe's eyes, and she felt a tightness in her chest. I looked at the woman before me, who seemed a little worn, and said, "Chloe." Chloe managed a smile. "Ethan, I need to talk to you. Can we find somewhere to sit?" I nodded and led her to a small park near the campus. We sat on a stone bench in the shade, neither of us speaking. Chloe thought about how, ever since I had hung up on her heart had been aching with a constant, sharp pain. She couldn't stop thinking about me, but she didn't know what to do. She had thought about coming to DC to find me, but she didn't know what she would say. Then, she had been assigned to oversee the freshman training at the academy, and Ryan had been constantly by her side. Back in Phoenix Creek, she hadn't minded. After all, she had agreed to meet him. But when Ryan started acting like her fiancé, as if it were a done deal, she felt a deep sense of unease for the first time, and for the first time, she thought that she didn't want to marry him. She began to distance herself from him, and when he noticed, he confronted her. "Chloe, I feel like you're pulling away. Aren't we supposed to be getting married?" Chloe was silent for a long moment before she finally said, "Ryan, I think we need to reconsider our engagement." "Why?" Ryan demanded. "I know I'm being unfair to you, but I've made up my mind," Chloe said, not wanting to drag it out. She was beginning to understand who it was she truly cared about. Ryan looked at her, a sudden realization dawning on his face. "Is it because of Ethan?" Chloe didn't answer. Ryan let out a cold laugh. "He's your brother. It's impossible. And besides, he's gone to DC. Do you really think he's ever coming back for you?" Hearing the tone of his voice, Chloe sensed he was hiding something. "Are you keeping something from me? Do you know why he suddenly went to Harvard? So what if I do? You two could never be together anyway. I was helping you." Now Chloe understood. My sudden distance from her, it was because of Ryan. She looked at him, her eyes like ice. "What did you do?" "I just told a few people about his little confession to you, that's all. But what really made him give up was you agreeing to meet me. He thought you were on my side." The words hit Chloe like a physical blow. So that was it. That's why I had confessed one day and then apologized the next, telling her not to worry about it. That's why I had decided to go to Harvard. She had misunderstood me. She had betrayed my feelings. Now that she knew her own heart, she wanted to apologize, to tell me that if I wasn't angry, she would defy the world to be with me. Later, when she found out she would be representing her unit in the parade in DC, she was so happy she couldn't sleep. She had even applied for a 6-month transfer to a base in the DC area. I watched Chloe, lost in her own thoughts, and grew impatient. "If you don't have anything to say, I'm going back," I said. My words snapped her out of her reverie. She grabbed my arm as I started to stand. "Don't go, Ethan." I was taken aback. Her desperate tone made it sound as if I were her lover. I shook my head, dismissing the ridiculous thought. "What is it you wanted to say to me?" Chloe looked at the boy she had watched grow up, never imagining she would develop these kinds of feelings for him. If she had realized it sooner, maybe she wouldn't have rejected me so harshly. Maybe she wouldn't have agreed to meet Ryan. But now she knew her own heart, and maybe it wasn't too late. "Ethan, I was wrong before. Now I know my own heart, and I like you too." Before she could finish, I shot to my feet, my eyes wide with disbelief and a flicker of something that looked like scorn. The rest of her words died in her throat. After a long moment, she found her voice again. "Ethan, I mean it. I've thought it all through. As long as I can be with you." It took me a long moment to get my own emotions under control. I cut her off. "There's no need. I've moved on. From now on, you'll only ever be my sister. And besides, have you forgotten? You and Ryan are supposed to be getting married at the end of the year." Chloe quickly explained. "I've already broken it off with him, and I'll explain everything to Mom and Dad. You don't have to worry about anything." Looking at her, so full of conviction, I started to question my own judgment for the first time. It seemed that no matter what Chloe did, she only ever thought of herself. Because she thought she didn't like me, she rejected me without a second thought, even telling me my feelings were wrong, and then went on a date with Ryan right in front of me. Now that I was gone, she suddenly decided she liked me and tossed Ryan aside without a second thought, just as she had once tossed me aside for him. A feeling of disgust washed over me. I looked at her, my voice clear and steady. I'll say it again. I have no feelings for you now other than those of a brother for a sister. As for you and Ryan, I don't care. I have things to do, so I'm leaving. I didn't want to talk to her anymore. I turned to leave. I had only taken a step when she grabbed my arm. I know you're just saying that because you're angry. I was wrong before. I'll make it up to you, I promise. I couldn't help but roll my eyes. Was she incapable of taking no for an answer? I didn't want to talk anymore. I pulled my arm free and started to walk away. In her eyes, I was just being stubborn, still angry with her. She smiled indulgently and caught up to me. Ethan, I've gotten that transfer to the DC base for 6 months. I'll come see you whenever I'm free. We can see each other all the time. A bitter taste filled my mouth. I really had no idea what was going through her head. When I had loved her, she had pushed me away. Now that I had finally given up, she was suddenly desperate to have me back. The whiplash was exhausting, and I had no idea how to handle it. When we got back to the Harvard gate, I said to her, "You should go. I'm heading in." I turned and walked through the gates without waiting for her to reply. But I had only taken a few steps when a hand grabbed my arm. I turned back, annoyed. What else do? But when I saw who it was, I was shocked. Ryan. Before I could react, a fist slammed into my face. "You piece of trash, Ethan. Do your professors at Harvard know you're a lowlife who goes around seducing other people's fiancés?" Ryan shouted, his voice loud enough for all the students and faculty passing by to hear. Everyone stopped and stared. My vision went red with anger. The suffocating feeling of being falsely accused, just like in my past life, washed over me again. I steadied myself and tried to fight back. "Don't spread lies, Ryan. I can report you to your school. You could get expelled." Ryan suddenly dropped his aggressive tone and started playing the victim. "Everyone, look. He's the one who went after my fiancée, and now he's threatening me to keep quiet." "Shut up." Chloe's voice cut through the noise as she ran over. If looks could kill, Ryan would have been dead 1,000 times over. She was filled with a bitter regret. How could she have been so wrong about him? Chloe stepped in front of me. "Why don't you go inside?" she said quietly. "I'll handle this." I shook my head. "If I leave now, I'll never be able to clear my name." Seeing Chloe defending me, Ryan's jealousy boiled over. "Chloe, I'm your fiancé. How can you defend him?" The crowd started to murmur, pointing and staring at Chloe and me. My face went pale. I couldn't let him say another word. I had worked so hard to get into Harvard. I couldn't let him destroy everything. Before I could speak, a familiar voice cut in. "Hey, future brother-in-law. That's Ethan, your fiancé's brother, not your rival." I turned in surprise to see Scarlett walking toward us. She came to stand beside me and greeted Chloe. "Chloe, you're here too." Then she looked at me, and seeing the red mark on my face, her eyes flashed with anger. "Who hit you?" "Ethan, why didn't you fight back?" She reached out a hand as if to touch my cheek. Chloe frowned and instinctively moved to block her hand. Scarlett leaned in close to her and whispered quickly, "Get him out of here now. Do you want to get Ethan kicked out of Harvard?" Chloe's eyes widened. She glanced at me, then grabbed the still-dazed Ryan and pulled him toward her Jeep. After they were gone, Scarlett turned to the crowd. "Sorry about that, everyone. That was Ethan's future brother-in-law. He's got a few issues, and he gets jealous of how close Ethan is with his sister." With that, she grabbed my hand and pulled me onto campus. I had been in a daze since Scarlett had called Ryan brother-in-law, and only the stinging on my cheek brought me back to my senses. Thinking about what had just happened, I looked at the girl beside me. "Thank you for helping me back there. Do you have a first aid kit in your dorm?" Scarlett asked, her brow still furrowed. "We need to take care of that cut on your face." I nodded. We walked toward my dorm building in silence. I was starting to realize that Scarlett seemed angry. "Are you angry?" I asked tentatively. "Yes, I'm angry," she burst out, her frustration boiling over. "When someone hits you, why don't you hit them back? And that sister of yours, what a terrible judge of character. She just stood there and let it happen." "How did you know I started, but she cut me off." "I have eyes, don't I?" she said sharply. "I could tell something was off between you two back in Phoenix Creek." "That's in the past," I said quickly. "She's just my sister now." Scarlett stopped and stared at me, her gaze so intense it made me nervous. Just as I was about to say something to break the silence, she leaned in close, her voice low and alluring. "Since that's in the past, do you want to go out with me?" I stared at her, speechless. We stood there, looking at each other, neither of us breaking eye contact. "What are you two doing?" Mason had been on his way down from our room to see what was going on after hearing about the commotion at the gate. He had seen us standing close, staring into each other's eyes, and his heart had sunk. I snapped back to reality and quickly stepped away from Scarlett, turning to face Mason. Remembering what he had told me earlier, I rushed to explain. Mason, it's not what it looks like. But Scarlett cut me off. Why are you explaining to him? I was at a loss for words. Mason stepped forward, his eyes fixed on Scarlett. Because he knows I like you, he said. I want to ask you out. At his words, I felt Scarlett's gaze on me, sharp as a needle. I couldn't meet her eyes. Just as I was trying to think of an excuse to escape, another student approached me. Ethan Clark, the dean wants to see you in his office. I knew at once it was because of the incident at the gate. Even though Scarlett had managed to defuse the situation, a prestigious university like Harvard would still need to investigate. I'll go with you, Scarlett said immediately. Mason, standing beside us, looked on with a heavy heart. I'll go too, he said. The three of us walked to the administration building. I went into the office alone, while Scarlett and Mason waited outside. Mason looked at Scarlett. You like Ethan, don't you? Scarlett glanced at him and, without a word, nodded. But I can tell he doesn't feel the same way about you, Mason continued. Scarlett frowned, then a small smile played on her lips. I know, but that doesn't mean he won't in the future. I'm confident. It was Mason's turn to be silent. After a moment, he spoke again. I can tell you're from a powerful family, not like the rest of us. Even if you and Ethan did get together, would your family ever approve of you marrying a guy from an ordinary background? Scarlett looked at him, her eyes narrowing. So, you don't actually like me. You're just interested in my family connections. She had noticed from his clothes and demeanor that he likely came from a similar background to her own. Mason looked down. I'm sorry, Scarlett cut him off. My family doesn't care about that kind of thing. As long as I'm happy and he's a good person, they won't object. She thought for a moment, then added, you can say no. This isn't the old days. We're not living in a feudal society. Mason's head snapped up, and he looked at her with a new light in his eyes, a spark of rebellion. Could he really say no? Just then, I came out of the office. Scarlett rushed over to me. How did it go? They didn't give you a hard time, did they? I smiled and shook my head. No, it's fine. I explained everything. Scarlett nodded in support. Then I looked at Mason, who was lost in thought. I nudged him. Mason, what's wrong? We can go now. Let's go, Mason said, snapping out of his trance. Back in our room, I looked at the still distracted Mason, assuming he was still upset about what he had seen between me and Scarlett. Mason, I began, about what you saw with Scarlett, but he cut me off. Ethan, I'm sorry. I lied to you. What? I asked, confused. I said I wanted to ask Scarlett out, not because I like her, but because of her family. I pulled up a chair and sat down next to him. It's okay, I said gently. Take your time. From what he told me, I learned that his father was a general in the DC military command. He had been raised under his father's strict control, constantly told that he had to marry someone from a similarly powerful family. Coming to Harvard was the one small bit of freedom he had managed to fight for. When he realized Scarlett came from a similar background, he had impulsively decided to pursue her. I had never imagined that the cheerful, carefree Mason had so much weighing on him. Mason, I said, this is a new era. We have the right to choose who we marry. If you don't want this, you can talk to your family. It's your life. You should be the one to decide, not anyone else. It was a lesson I had learned the hard way in my past life. Mason looked at me. No wonder Scarlett likes you, he said. She said the same thing to me. I was about to say something, but he suddenly threw his arms around me in a hug. His voice was choked with emotion. Ethan, thank you. I know what I have to do now. I patted him on the back. After a moment, he pulled away. His eyes were red, but he was smiling again. I had just breathed a sigh of relief when he asked, Ethan, you really don't like Scarlett? I haven't thought about it, I said. Right now, I just want to focus on my studies. I loved Chloe for so many years, and it ended in disaster. Whether I like someone or not doesn't seem so important anymore. I just want to learn as much as I can and build a good future for myself. For the rest of the holiday weekend, Mason showed me around DC, and Scarlett joined us most of the time. I didn't see Chloe or Ryan again. I didn't know how she had dealt with him, but it was no longer my concern. After the holiday, I went back to my routine of spending every day at the library. Scarlett was there too, but this time I didn't try to avoid her. I knew that if I did, it would only fuel the rumors. especially after the incident at the gate. But I also felt I owed her an explanation. I found her in a quiet corner of the library. "Scarlett," I began, "I know people have been getting the wrong idea about us. If it's bothering you—" I trailed off, not sure what to say next. I hadn't really thought of a solution. Scarlett looked at my troubled expression and sighed. "I was the one who said that, not you. I was worried you'd be upset. And besides, I'm happy for the chance to stand by your side." I saw the affection in her eyes and bit my lip. "I might not be ready for that yet, but thank you. I understand," she said, her voice full of confidence. "It's okay. I'll keep trying. I'm sure I can change your mind." I didn't know what to say to that, so I just remained silent. Now that we had cleared the air, things between us felt much more comfortable. Time passed quickly as I focused on my studies. Half a month later, I was on my way to the library when one of my dorm mates ran up to me. "Ethan," he said, "I was just at the front desk for a phone call, and there's a woman in a military uniform there looking for you." I nodded. "Okay, I'll go see." I headed for the main entrance. I assumed it was Chloe, probably here to tell me what had happened with Ryan. But when I got there, I didn't see Chloe. Instead, there was a woman I didn't recognize, also in uniform. I hesitated for a moment, then approached her. "Hello, I'm Ethan. Were you looking for me?" The woman nodded. "I'm here on behalf of Captain Chloe. She asked me to bring you to her." I was confused. Why didn't she come herself? "The captain is in the hospital." I was shocked. What happened to her? Why is she in the hospital? "It's better if she tells you herself. Do you have time to come with me now?" I thought for a moment. I didn't have any more classes that day. "I'll go with you to the hospital," I said. At the hospital, I pushed open the door to her room to find Chloe lying face down on the bed, her eyes closed. At the sound of the door, she opened her eyes. A flicker of joy crossed her face when she saw me, and she tried to sit up, but a sharp pain from her back made her wince and frown. I rushed to her side to help her, and I could see the bruises on her back. They looked like she had been hit. "You're back." Chloe grabbed my hand. "Ethan, there's nothing standing in our way anymore. Can you give me another chance?" I stared at her in astonishment. Before I could say anything, she continued, "I've broken off the engagement with Ryan, and I've talked to Mom and Dad. They don't object to us being together." My eyes widened. You told Mom and Dad about us?" She squeezed my hand tighter. "I know you're still hurt by how I rejected you before. I faced the consequences for that. I just hope you can forgive me. Ethan, I really do love you." So the bruises on her back, were they really from being hit? I mumbled to myself, my mind suddenly going blank. The same person who had so righteously rejected me, telling me she would only ever be my sister, had now gone and told our parents everything. But I had already moved on. I no longer needed her love. So, instead of feeling moved by her actions, I just felt lost, and a deep sadness welled up inside me. In my past life, I had pleaded with my parents, just as she must have, but my reward had been to be thrown out of the house to live a life of misery. But for her, they had relented, even given their blessing. And through it all, not a single person had asked me what I wanted. A chill ran through me. Chloe watched my silence, and the joy in her eyes slowly gave way to anxiety. She looked at me intently. "Ethan, aren't you happy? From now on, we can." I cut her off before she could finish. I had carefully masked all emotion from my face. "What did you tell them?" I asked, my voice flat. "That they didn't even call me once." Chloe then told me the whole story. After she had dragged Ryan away from the gates of Harvard, she had taken him back to the academy. In the meantime, her formal complaint had arrived, and after an investigation, Ryan was expelled. The news caused a huge scandal back in Phoenix Creek. His parents had even come to our house to cause a scene. Chloe had gotten back just in time to set the record straight. Ryan, completely cornered, had a meltdown, pointing a finger at Chloe in front of everyone. "Chloe, don't you dare pretend you're innocent in all this. You just used me to cover up your own disgusting feelings for your brother." "Ryan," Chloe had shouted, cutting him off. "You know very well who's to blame for all of this. And whatever is between me and Ethan is our family's business. It has nothing to do with you. And since you've brought it up, I'm not afraid to admit it. Maybe we should talk about you and that senior at your school." To Chloe's warning look, Ryan had faltered. He knew she was talking about the senior girl at the academy who had a crush on him. Frustrated by Chloe's lack of response, he had sought comfort in the senior's attention. She had even paid for his bus ticket to DC. In the end, Ryan had backed down. Not long after, his parents sent him to live with his grandmother, several days' journey away. After dealing with Ryan, Chloe had confronted my parents. She had knelt before them, startling them both. "Chloe, what are you doing?" "Mom, Dad, I have something to tell you. It might be hard for you to accept, but it's the truth." My parents looked confused. "What is it? Tell us." "Mom, Dad, I'm sorry. I've betrayed your trust. My feelings for Ethan, they're not just sisterly. I love him." The words landed like a bomb. As you can imagine, what followed was a storm. Chloe knelt for a full day and night. In the end, they didn't say anything more, just told her to stand up. Chloe knew that while they hadn't given their approval, they weren't going to stand in her way. Listening to her story, I didn't know what to feel. Even though she had done so much, I couldn't go back. I looked at her. "Let me tell you a story." A flicker of confusion, quickly replaced by unease, crossed her face. She had thought that once Ryan was out of the picture and our parents were on board, I would happily come back to her. But from the moment I had arrived, I hadn't smiled once. Her heart pounded in her chest, and a knot of panic tightened in her stomach. I didn't wait for her to respond. I just started talking. I told her everything about my past life, from my hopeful confession to my lonely death in a city far from home. When I finished, I closed my eyes, pushing all the emotion down deep inside. I looked at her, my gaze calm and steady. "Chloe, I'm sorry. I've moved on. From now on, we can only be brother and sister." My words hit her like a physical blow. The color drained from her face. "Ethan, I was a fool. I didn't realize my own feelings. I'll change, I promise. Can't we start over?" A wave of sadness washed over me. If she had said these words to me in my past life, would I have been spared that miserable existence? In my past life, she hadn't loved me. Now, she wanted to be with me. Is it just human nature to always want what you can't have? If that was the case, then my past life was a complete waste, and I would not make the same mistake in this one. But none of that mattered anymore. I had decided to move forward, and there was no point in dwelling on the past. "You should get some rest," I told her. "I'll come see you later." With that, I turned to leave, but she grabbed my arm. "Ethan, are you really going to give up on me because of a story?" I paused, a shadow of sadness in my voice. What if I told you it wasn't a story? What if it really happened to me? I pulled my arm free and walked out of the room without looking back. Chloe watched me go, her heart aching with an unbearable pain. She had fixed everything, so why had she still lost me? She couldn't accept it. She wouldn't give up. I had loved her so much. How could I just give up on her? As for the story, it made her uneasy, but she didn't believe in such supernatural things. The most important thing now was to let her back heal. I had a soft heart. If she showed me how much she cared, she was sure she could win me back. After leaving the hospital, I didn't go straight back to campus. I found a payphone and called home. My father answered. We were both silent for a long moment. I spoke first. "Dad, how are you and Mom?" After a moment, his voice came through the line. "Your mother's been sick, but it's nothing serious. Don't you worry." My heart ached. I knew it wouldn't have been easy for them to accept what Chloe had told them. I just didn't understand why they had given in. But I needed to make my own feelings clear. "Dad, I'm sorry about Chloe and me." But before I could finish, my father cut me off. "Your mother and I have decided not to get involved. Even if you two never come home again, we'll be fine. We can take care of ourselves." Hearing the weariness in his voice, I couldn't stop myself from asking, "Dad, why didn't you object?" He was silent for a moment. "I'd never seen Chloe like that before," he finally said. "It reminded me of her father. I feel like I owe her. So that was it." "Dad, listen to me. When I told you I would only ever see her as a sister, I meant it. That's a big part of the reason I insisted on coming to Harvard." The line went silent. "Ethan, you need to tell me straight." My father's voice was louder now. "What is going on between you and Chloe?" "I've already made it clear to her," I said, my voice firm. "We will only ever be family. But Chloe, Dad, you and Mom just need to take care of yourselves. This is between Chloe and me. We can handle it. I didn't come home for the 4th of July, but I promise, we'll both be home for Christmas." In the end, my father didn't argue. "All right," was all he said. After hanging up, I thought of Chloe. I hoped she wouldn't get stuck on this. Either way, I didn't want my parents to worry about me anymore. By the time I got back to campus, it was already evening. As I approached my dorm, I saw Scarlett pacing back and forth outside. I walked over to her. "Scarlett." She cut me off, her voice filled with a mixture of anxiety and relief. "Where have you been? Do you have any idea how worried I've been?" "I'm sorry," I said, feeling guilty. "Something came up. I had to go to the hospital." "The hospital?" she asked, her eyes scanning me from head to toe. "What's wrong? Are you sick?" I shook my head. "It wasn't me. It was my sister." Scarlett was taken aback. "She's still in DC? She didn't go back. She applied for a transfer to a base here. She'll probably be here for about 6 months." Scarlett's expression darkened, and she fell silent. I could feel her mood shift, but I didn't know what to say. "I'll let you know where I'm going from now on," I offered after a moment. Her eyes lit up. "Okay," she said. "I'm going to head up now. I don't have class tomorrow afternoon," I added. "I'll be at the library. I have one class, but I'll meet you there after," she said immediately. She watched me walk into the building, a wide smile on her face. Even though I hadn't said yes, she could tell I wasn't completely indifferent to her. She knew that with a little more time, she could win me over. Back in my room, the other guys were there, but Mason's bunk was empty. "Has anyone seen Mason?" I asked. "He went home after class, I think," one of my roommates said. I nodded. I figured something must have come up at home. I didn't think much of it and settled down at my desk with a book. Later that night, I washed up and went to bed. Meanwhile, at the military hospital, Chloe was asleep, but her rest was fitful. She dreamed that I had confessed my love to her, and she had rejected me. The next day, she had gone to the academy, but I had failed my exams and wasn't there. The news of my confession had spread, and my mother had fallen ill from the stress. Chloe had rushed home, but by the time she arrived, I had been kicked out of the house and had disappeared. She knew my mother had only said it in anger, that she hadn't meant to truly banish her only son. Chloe had assumed I would come back in a few days, but days turned into weeks, and weeks into years, and I never returned. My mother died of a broken heart, and in her endless grief, Chloe finally realized her true feelings. But the boy she had protected since childhood was gone forever. A permanent hole had been torn in her heart, one that could never be filled. The desolation and panic of the dream jolted her awake. She gasped for breath, the images from the dream replaying in her mind. It had all felt so real, as if she had lived it herself. She suddenly remembered the story I had told her that day, and how similar it was to her dream. "What if I told you it was my own experience?" My words echoed in her mind. A wave of shock washed over her. So that was why, after confessing his love, he had apologized the very next day, telling her to forget it. That was why he had decided to go to Harvard to get away from her. As she thought about it, a sharp pain shot through her head. She squeezed her eyes shut as a flood of memories, not her own, crashed into her mind. When the pain subsided, the memories were clearer. I really had lived 2 lives. The clearer the memories of my past life became, the more her heart ached. No wonder I had been so distant since the day of the exams. No wonder, when she had confessed her own feelings, I had shown no emotion, had even rejected her. In my past life, I had died alone in a strange city, and it was ultimately her fault. It wasn't just me. Now that she knew the truth, she knew there was no hope for them. The thought was like a knife in her heart. Staring out at the moonlit sky, Chloe knew she wouldn't be able to sleep. On the other side of the city, I was sleeping soundly, oblivious to it all. The next day, I went to class with my roommates, but Mason wasn't there. A flicker of worry crossed my mind. Had something serious happened? He had never missed a class since the semester started. I didn't see him all morning. I even went back to the dorm at lunchtime to check, but he wasn't there. A bad feeling started to creep in, and I found it hard to concentrate on my reading at the library that afternoon. Scarlett, who had been sitting with me for an hour, noticed my distraction. "What are you thinking about?" she asked gently. "You haven't turned a page in a long time." I looked up at her. "You're here. I haven't seen Mason all day. He didn't even come to class. I'm a little worried." "Don't worry," she said. "He's not a child. He can." Before she could finish, 2 girls at the next table started whispering. "That guy is so pitiful. He worked so hard to get into Harvard, and now his father is making him drop out." I know, right? It's the 21st century, and he's still going on about settling down and starting a family being the only proper path. I think he's an English major. His name is Mason or something. At the mention of his name, I shot to my feet, startling the 2 girls. "Where is he now?" I asked them. "Probably in the dean's office," one of them said. I took off running. Scarlett grabbed my books and ran after me. The library was a bit of a distance from the administration building, and we had to pass the main gate. As I was running past, Scarlett, who was behind me, grabbed my arm. "They're over there." I stopped and turned to see Mason being dragged into a car by a tall man. "Mason!" I shouted, running toward them, but it was too late. By the time I reached the gate, the car was gone, leaving only a trail of exhaust. I stopped, my heart sinking. Will I ever see him again? I asked Scarlett, who was standing beside me. She was silent. She didn't know. I only stood there for a moment before turning and heading for the administration building. Where are you going? I'm going to talk to his advisor. He'll have Mason's home address. I had only taken a step when she stopped me. You're going to his house? But she met my determined gaze, and the rest of her sentence died on her lips. Fine, I'll go with you. A small smile touched my lips. Thank you. After getting the address from his advisor, we went straight to Mason's house. Getting out of the car, I looked at the impressive townhouse before me, took a deep breath, and knocked on the door. After a moment, the door opened. A middle-aged woman who bore a striking resemblance to Mason stood in the doorway. Hello, my name is Ethan. I'm a classmate of Mason's. You must be his mother. The woman nodded, her eyes wary. I offered a gentle smile. Ma'am, I heard. Before I could finish, Mason's defiant voice rang out from inside the house. Go ahead, hit me. Go on, kill me if you have the guts. Otherwise, I'm going back to school, and I'm leaving this suffocating house. Hearing this, the woman ignored us and rushed inside, crying. Don't hit him. He's our only son. You'll be the death of me. Scarlett and I exchanged a look and followed her inside. In the living room, a middle-aged man was raising a cane to strike Mason. Without thinking, I ran and stood in front of Mason. Ethan, Scarlett cried out, her face pale. The man, seeing a flash of white, thought it was his wife and quickly lessened the force of the blow. He was about to scold her when he saw me, a stranger about his son's age. He frowned. Who are you? Why are you in my house? Mason stared at me in shock. Ethan, what are you doing here? Seeing that the cane hadn't hit me, I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. Hello, sir. My name is Ethan. I'm a classmate of Mason's. Mason won't be going back to school, so he won't have any classmates, the man said dismissively. You should leave, and don't come back. But I didn't move. Sir, may I ask why? I sent him to school to learn obedience, not defiance. If he can't learn that, then he has no business being in school. Dad, is that all you want for me, to get married? Mason argued. I told you I can make a good life for myself. Why won't you believe me? Everyone gets married. I want you to marry well into a good family. I'm doing this for your own good. Listening to them, I understood the root of the problem. The man loved his son, but his thinking was stuck in the past. I looked at him and smiled. Sir, I know you love your son. You want him to marry well so that he'll be secure in the future. But is getting married early the only way? Does he have to marry into a powerful family? What if he marries someone and she treats him badly? What then? No one would dare mistreat my son, the man boomed. Some wounds can't be seen, I said. Instead of relying on marriage, shouldn't we learn to be strong and independent, to control our own destinies? Isn't that better? The room fell silent. Everyone was looking at me. The man looked at me thoughtfully, a complex expression in his eyes. Sir, you don't have to make him drop out, I continued. Let him stay in school. See how he does. If he can prove to you that he can make a good life for himself without relying on anyone else, then does it really matter if he gets married or who he marries? The man sneered. I see now where Mason learned his defiance. From you. What about you? Are you never going to get married? Will your parents approve of that? I shook my head and smiled. Sir, you misunderstand me. I'm not against marriage. I hope to have a family one day, but I won't pin all my hopes on it. Who can you rely on more than yourself? The man was silent, lost in thought. Seeing his father wavering, Mason pressed his advantage. Dad, please just trust me. I promise you, I'll make a good life for myself. Finally, the man sighed and said nothing more. Mason breathed a sigh of relief and we exchanged a smile. Outside the townhouse, Mason threw his arms around me. Thank you, really. You're my friend for life. I smiled and patted him on the back, and he winced in pain. What's wrong? Even though you blocked the cane today, I still got a good whack yesterday when I made him angry, he explained. It still hurts a bit. I frowned. Maybe we should go to the hospital and get that looked at before you go back to school. The paperwork to re-enroll can wait. Don't worry, the withdrawal papers were never filed. I can just go back to class. Good. Scarlett, who had been quiet until now, finally spoke up. Then let's go to the hospital. Yeah, Scarlett, thank you for today too, Mason said with a grin. Scarlett just waved it off. The three of us went to the hospital together. While we were waiting for the nurse to treat Mason's back, Scarlett pulled me aside. Her voice was stern. Ethan, what were you thinking, jumping in front of that cane? Are you trying to get yourself killed? I felt a little sheepish. I don't know. It was just a reflex. You're going to be the death of me, she said, exasperated. I know, I said quietly. It won't happen again. Seeing me so contrite, her expression softened. She was about to say something else when a familiar voice interrupted. We both turned to see Chloe standing a short distance away, watching us. Seeing me so close to another girl, one she recognized from Phoenix Creek, a pang of jealousy shot through her. She wanted to march over and pull us apart, but after the dream she'd had, she knew she no longer had the right. Chloe approached me. What are you doing at the hospital again? Are you sick? No, my friend got hurt, I replied. Chloe nodded. Ethan, can we talk? Seeing the hesitation in my eyes, her heart ached. It's about the story you told me yesterday, she added. I have something I want to say. I was surprised. What did she mean? Could it be that she remembered her past life too? I followed her to a gazebo outside the hospital. What did you want to talk about? Chloe looked at me, her gaze steady. Ethan, I'm sorry, she said after a long moment. I remember everything from our past life. I'm so sorry that I ruined your life. For some reason, hearing her say those words made my eyes well up with tears. It was as if all the pain and suffering of my past life had been waiting for this moment. Seeing my tear-filled eyes, she looked helpless. Ethan, don't cry. It was my fault. It was all my fault. Can you forgive me? Hearing her call herself sister again surprised me. Ethan, after remembering what happened, I know we can't be together, but please don't push me away. Can I still be your sister? Looking into her warm eyes, it was as if the sister who had always doted on me was back. I smiled. Of course, you'll always be my sister. Chloe's lips curved into a small smile, but her heart was filled with a bottomless sorrow. She raised her hand and, just like she used to, gently stroked my hair. I didn't pull away. I felt the weight of the past finally begin to lift. The past was the past. The future would be better. But from where Scarlett stood, watching us, it looked as if I had gone back to Chloe. Seeing the smiles on our faces, her heart filled with a mixture of disappointment and anger. Anger that I was so willing to fall back into the same trap, to be caught in the web of rumors once again. When she saw us walking toward her, side by side, she couldn't hold back any longer. I need to talk to you, she said, her eyes fixed on me. I was a little taken aback by her tone. I glanced at Chloe. I'll be right back, I said. Chloe nodded, a flicker of pain in her eyes. But to Scarlett, it looked as if I was asking for permission. It only made her angrier. Chloe watched us walk away, a feeling of desolation washing over her. She stood there for a long time before finally turning to the soldier who had accompanied her. Let's go back to the base. I followed Scarlett to a quiet corner at the end of the hallway. What's wrong? I asked, confused by her dark expression. Why are you so angry? Are you getting back together with your sister? I was taken aback, then I understood. A strange feeling, like a wall I had built around my heart was starting to crumble, washed over me. Is that why you're so angry? I asked, a small smile playing on my lips. What do you think? She shot back, her eyes flashing with a mixture of frustration and despair. Have you forgotten what happened at the school gate? Can't you see me? Why do you have to go back to her? Seeing the genuine pain in her eyes, I couldn't tease her any longer. You've misunderstood. I didn't choose her. Scarlett, who had been bracing herself for either a fight or a concession, was stunned into silence. You didn't agree to get back with her? Then, what were you two doing just now? We just cleared the air. No matter what, she'll always be my sister. Scarlett felt as if she had been given a new lease on life. She knew, with a sudden clarity, that she couldn't live without me. She stepped closer, her gaze intense. Ethan, I really like you. Can you give me a chance to be with you? I looked at the girl in front of me, and a montage of all our moments together flashed through my mind. My heart softened. I realized I wasn't indifferent to her. I had been hurt by Chloe, and I was scared. But now the past was resolved. And this girl, who had been nothing but kind to me, was standing right in front of me. Maybe it was time to take a chance. My ears turning red, I finally nodded. Scarlett's eyes lit up, and she stammered, overjoyed. Ethan, did you say yes? Yes, I said, meeting her gaze and nodding more firmly this time. Scarlett's face broke into a wide, ecstatic grin. She tentatively reached for my hands, her touch sending a jolt through me. As she held my hands in hers, a feeling of pure contentment washed over her. Ethan, she said, her voice full of emotion, I'll be so good to you. We stood there for a few more moments, then I gently pulled my hands away. We should go, I said. Mason should be done by now. Scarlett nodded, the smile never leaving her face. Just as we reached the treatment room, Mason was walking out. I went to his side. How is it? Is it serious? Mason shook his head. It's fine. The three of us left the hospital together. In the car, Mason, who was about to get in the back and leave a spot for me as usual, paused when Scarlett opened the front passenger door for me. He looked back and forth between us. Did I miss something? I felt a little embarrassed and quickly got into the back seat. I'll sit in the back with Mason. Scarlett just raised an eyebrow, closed the passenger door, and got into the driver's seat. As she drove away from the hospital, Mason wouldn't let it go. He leaned close to my ear. So, what's going on with you two? What are you talking about? I said, feigning innocence. Nothing's going on. Don't play dumb, he said, seeing right through me. You said yes to her, didn't you? I didn't see the point in hiding it. I was just a little shy about it. I nodded. All right, Mason said with a grin. It's about time. She's been waiting long enough. Then he turned to Scarlett in the driver's seat. So, Scarlett, since all your dreams have come true, does this mean you're buying us dinner? Scarlett nodded. Of course. We'll invite all our roommates. We picked a restaurant not far from campus, and Mason got on the phone to round everyone up. Half an hour later, everyone had arrived. As soon as Scarlett's roommate sat down, she asked, So, what's the occasion? Why the sudden fancy dinner? Our dear Scarlett has some good news to announce, Mason said with a grin. Good news? What is it? Tell us. One of the other girls said eagerly. You'll have to ask these two, Mason said, gesturing to Scarlett and me. All eyes turned to us, and I felt a little self-conscious. Scarlett's face was a little flushed. Under the table, she reached for my hand and gave it a gentle squeeze. All right, she said. I've invited you all here tonight to announce that Ethan and I are officially dating. All right, girl. You finally got him. Yes, you two look so good together. When you get married, you have to invite us to the wedding. Listening to everyone's well wishes, a feeling of pure happiness washed over me. The days passed, and winter began to set in. One day, I was walking on campus when I ran into Mason coming from the main gate. Ethan, your sister is here looking for you. She's at the gate. Mason knew Chloe from her previous visits. I nodded. Okay, I'll go see. What's she doing here again? Scarlett, who was walking with me, muttered under her breath, rolling her eyes. Doesn't she have a war to fight or something? I looked at her, amused. Why don't you go on to the library? I'll be right there. I'll go with you, she said. I nodded and we walked to the gate together. When Chloe saw me, a smile touched her lips, but it faded when she saw Scarlett beside me. What's up? I asked. Chloe forced a smile, pushing down the bitterness in her heart. I was just thinking, you'll be heading home for winter break soon. I won't be able to get leave until later in the month, so I just wanted to say hi. I was also wondering when your break starts. I could buy your bus ticket for you in advance. I was about to answer when Scarlett spoke up. That's okay. Ethan and I will be traveling home together, so we'll buy our tickets together. Chloe glanced at Scarlett, then looked down. That's good, she said after a moment. I'm glad you'll be traveling together. I'll worry less. She knew she was overstaying her welcome. I should go, she said. You two head on in. I nodded. Drive safe. Scarlett and I turned and walked back onto campus. Chloe watched us go side by side. She saw Scarlett lean in and whisper something in my ear, and a beautiful smile spread across my face. A wave of bitterness washed over her. If not for one mistake, that could have been her standing beside me. But what was done was done. There was no going back. After finals, Scarlett and I headed back to Phoenix Creek. The same white Lamborghini pulled up in front of my house. As I was about to get out, Scarlett grabbed my hand, reluctant to let go. Why don't I come in with you and say hi to your parents? She asked. I immediately shook my head. No. We agreed I would talk to them first, then you could come over. All right, she conceded, but she didn't let go of my hand. I was about to say something to reassure her when I heard my mother's voice from outside the car. Ethan, I froze, then turned to see my parents standing right there. I wanted the ground to swallow me whole. I shot a glare at Scarlett. She hadn't expected to be caught either, but it worked out in her favor. We both quickly got out of the car. I hugged my parents. Mom, Dad, I'm home. Scarlett greeted them as well. Hello, Mr. and Mrs. Clark. We've met before. I'm Scarlett. My mother's eyes darted back and forth between us, her expression unreadable. I held my breath. After a long moment, my mother finally spoke to Scarlett. I know you're Ethan's classmate. Thank you for driving him home. It's cold out. You should get home. Scarlett had expected them to ask about our relationship, not to be dismissed so quickly. She was at a loss for words. I was surprised too, but I quickly recovered and gestured for Scarlett to leave. With no other choice, she got in her car and drove away. Inside, after some small talk, my parents finally asked about Scarlett. "Are you and that Scarlett girl dating?" I knew I couldn't hide it and I didn't want to. I nodded. "But what about your sister?" "She knows," I said quickly. "We're on good terms now. You don't have to worry, Mom and Dad." Hearing that, they finally seemed to relax. For the rest of the break, I helped my parents with holiday preparations and went on a few dates with Scarlett. Before I knew it, it was Christmas Eve. "Didn't Chloe say she was coming home today?" my mother said, peering out the door. "It's already afternoon. I wonder where she is." "Don't worry, Mom. She said she'd be here, so she'll—" "Mom, she's here." A Jeep was pulling up to the house. Chloe got out and hurried over to us. "Mom, Ethan, I'm home. You're just in time for dinner," my mother said, relieved. "Hey, sis," I said with a smile. We all went inside, where the Christmas Eve dinner was already on the table. The four of us sat down to a happy holiday meal. We all had a few drinks, and my father, who couldn't hold his liquor, was soon helped to bed by my mother. Chloe, a little tipsy herself, rested her head on her hand. "Are you drunk too, sis?" I asked quietly. She shook her head. She looked at me, her eyes tracing the lines of my face, fighting the urge to reach out and touch me. "Ethan," she said, "I never asked you. Are you happy now?" "Of course," I replied. "I'm very happy." Chloe nodded. "That's good." She stood up. "Come on. I bought some fireworks. Let's go set them off." "Okay." I followed her out into the yard and lit a sparkler, waving it joyfully in the air. Chloe watched me, a gentle smile on her lips. This was enough. To be his sister, to stand by his side, was perhaps the greatest mercy heaven could grant her.